many global figures have tried to intervene in the Israel-Palestine conflict over the decades. Henry Kissinger, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, I think at one stage had a deal. The latest, though, is Greta Thunberg, better known as an environmental activist. It's not quite gone to plan. She and others tried to sail a boat carrying aid into Gaza and to break the Israel naval blockade, but Israel forces overnight took command of the vessel. They're taking it into a port on the Israel coast. Well, what is this? A well-meaning, important mission, or just a bit of a publicity stunt? Probably the latter, according to Eylon Levy. He's former spokesman for the State of Israel. He joins us now. Eylon, thank you very much for joining us. Can I just ask you a fairly basic question, but I think it's possibly worth thinking about. What's behind the Israeli government's decision not to let them land in Gaza? It's just the obvious reason that they didn't want the blockade broken?
Well, Israel has maintained a maritime blockade on the Gaza Strip in order to prevent weapon smuggling to Hamas-held territory. Once you allow one boat through with goods that you haven't inspected, then anyone can try to smuggle weapons into the Gaza Strip, and Israel doesn't want that to happen. This was a publicity stunt, but it was a publicity stunt that was trying to get goods into Hamas-held territory. Now they're being towed towards Ashdod port. What few bags of flour and tampons they brought with them will be sent into the Gaza Strip through the established channels, and they'll be put on the first plane out of the country.
But the reason I was asking, of course, this isn't any boat. It does carry Greta Thunberg and other campaigners. And what I was getting at, I suppose, is the calculation of the Israeli government. If you take the boat and do what you've just outlined, it gives the campaigners a PR coup. But presumably the Israeli government thought the downside of letting them land would have been worse.
Yeah, it's clear that Greta Thunberg didn't really think she was going to reach the Gaza Strip. This was a PR exercise that was intended to make Israel look bad. And I don't think Israel gave her that win, because the images we have coming out of yesterday are Greta Thunberg wearing a Kermit the Frog hat, smiling as an Israeli soldier gives her a turkey sandwich and a bottle of water. They wanted to make the Israelis look like monsters. And I think it was as gentle an interception of a boat trying to break a maritime blockade and reach hostile territory at war as could possibly be. But Israel cannot allow a precedent whereby anyone can just sail into territory controlled by Hamas, which is still at war with Israel, still trying to shoot rockets at Israeli cities, still holding 55 hostages, and do it without any sort of inspection. So Israel is saying, we have a new aid mechanism up and running, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. It's distributed over 10 million meals worth of food just in the time that Greta Thunberg was sailing on the Mediterranean, and aid can go in through the established channels.
Not much aid is getting in through the established channels, though, is it?
No, that's not true. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has distributed over 10 million meals worth of food in the Gaza Strip, and it's giving it free of charge to people who are at times astonished that they're getting food for free, because so much of the humanitarian aid that went in got intercepted, whether by Hamas or other criminal elements, and ended up being sold to them at extortionate prices on the market. What Israel is trying to do now is to balance the humanitarian needs of the population, which are real, with Israel's security needs, which are that Hamas shouldn't be able to intercept aid in order to continue financing its war machine. The pilot has been expanding beyond the initial distribution sites to other direct distribution to communities, making sure that people get the aid they need and that Hamas can't steal it.
Just to go back to Greta Thunberg and her boat, on the PR front, though, won't her followers now, maybe this was always going to be the case, will believe her version of events on what's going on Gaza? And by taking the boat, you do give them PR own goal, I think. Really, you do give them a PR goal. You said that the pictures that came out actually favoured the Israeli state. But I think Greta Thunberg will portray it differently.
Of course, and she has a cult following that will follow her whatever she says. But imagine the alternative. Imagine that she had been able to sail into the Gaza Strip, and Hamas, which has put on those very effective hostage parade ceremonies and knows how to create spectacles for the camera, had been able to stage manage some sort of heroes welcoming for her inside Gaza as she arrives with a few bags of flour. I think that would have given her a much bigger PR victory. And so, having to choose between various bad options, Israel decided to intercept the boat in the most peaceful way possible, drag them towards Ashdod port, where they are apparently going to be required to watch footage of the October 7th massacre to remind them of the terrorist
But,
entity that
well,
Israel is at war with and
well,
deported.
well, the other reason for Antarctica, though, is that you didn't really want Thunberg and the others to show what was really happening in Gaza.
No, Israel does not want the maritime blockade that is intended to prevent weapons from reaching a jihadi army at war with us to be broken. That is the reason for the maritime blockade, because the Gaza Strip, territory on Israel's doorstep, is controlled by an enemy regime that has been at war with us since the massacre they committed over 600 days ago. And Israel doesn't want them to be able to
Mm.
smuggle weapons by any way, by air, land, or sea.
But you're not suggesting that Thunberg's boat was a serious attempt to break the blockade. It's one vessel, civilian vessel, UK flagged, carrying some token aid.
Right, of course. It was a symbolic PR stunt that its declared goal was to break the blockade, but you and I both agreed that was never going to happen because Israel couldn't allow them to break the blockade in order not to create a precedent that anyone can get on a boat loaded with whatever they want, including weapons for Hamas, and sail into Gaza. It's important that this war be brought to an end, and it'll be brought to an end by making sure that Hamas is starved of the weapons and resources it needs to continue waging this.
What's you sort of touched on it earlier, but what's likely to happen to the people on the boat?
Israel's defense minister has instructed that they watch the 46 minutes of atrocity footage from October 7th, the same footage that was famously screened to journalists soon after the massacre. That will remind them of the barbaric enemy that Israel is fighting against, remind them that, contrary to their outrageous allegations of a genocide or whatever, that Israel is fighting to bring
Well,
to
so
justice a terrorist regime that burned whole families in their homes, massacred Israelis at a music festival, is threatening to do it again. And then I expect they'll be put on the first plane out of the country.
will they have to watch it before they're released?
That is what the defense minister has said.
Hmm. Thank you very much, Eylon Levy, a former spokesperson for the State of Israel.